Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and I am running the show by myself today while having an allergic reaction to my roommate's cat. So I put on a hat immediately before setting up the studio, and then when I was getting ready, I realized that my throat was closing up and I was starting to get all splotchy. So I think I'm fine, but if I look a little redder than usual, it turns out we have the most allergenic cat I've never been allergic to a cat before, but this cat is incredible. So I put the hat fully on my head and now I feel very stuffy, but I think I should be fine. So anyway, appreciate you guys rolling with me on the weird start time. I just needed a little bit of time to sort that all out. Good to see a lot of people on the stream today, and I have some cool and interesting stuff to show off. Good to see James, and I understand it's a little, we're trying out this time slot, but if you're interested, then make sure to subscribe. And also, there's a lot of really interesting things happening with like OpenAI and data breaches. So I have to shout out our sponsor, Varonis, this week has a really good one. If you go to varonis.com/Kody, Kody, check out the state of cybercrime. It's actually really, not actually, but it's always a really good one, but there's a lot in there this week. So check it out if you're interested in catching up, or also catch us on Friday, where we'll go through the hacking news of the week right here. Okay, so we have a lot to go through. I had a couple tweets that really took off this week, and I want to make sure people have a chance to ask questions and stuff about that. And then also there was some cool things that I just kind of found on Amazon that I wanted to shout out as just being interesting and weird. So let's go ahead, and I want to go ahead and show this first thing. This is what I called a flopper zero. So I wasn't sure if this was like a flipper zero clone, because I mean, okay, look at the colors, look at the button layout. I assume that was a circular D-pad. It is not. It is not a circular D-pad. So I have it here. This is a Lily Go. Yeah, Lily Go. And they're a company that has a good reputation in China. They make a lot of really cool boards like this. And the reason I bought this is not because it looked like a flopper zero. It's actually because of the microcontroller on the inside. So in this comment thread, a lot of people were talking about what they thought. And one person said, with just the ESP32, nothing much can be done. And that's actually not true. The reason I bought this is it actually has Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and native USB. So if you plug this in, it can act like a mouse as a keyboard. It can act like kind of like a USB rubber ducky style device. Like, you know, like it's really interesting all the things that this could potentially do. Of course, no code's been written for it. It's just interesting to note all the capabilities this little thing has. And I will say, so if you've worked with microcontrollers before, there's something called digital bounce, where a button will kind of go back and forth, like if it's not debounced. It's something that you kind of learn in like your maybe like first or second month of electrical engineering and programming, like sort of Arduino stuff. It's not like something you learn like right in the beginning, but it really affects like the output of your code. So you might be able to see that this is kind of glitchy. I keep going one direction, but sometimes it'll go back like one or two, and it really would make using a keyboard on this impossible. So actually the manufacturer reached out in the comments and said that they were working on it. They're somewhere in there. More? It'll probably make me log in. I don't know. Somewhere in here, the manufacturer reached out and said that they were working on it. So, oh yeah, I think it's down here. So that was really cool. Whenever I see the manufacturer of the device like actually say hello in the comments and like address the issue, I know that they're kind of on top of things. So I have to say, I kind of like announced this as like a flopper zero, like a clone of the flipper, but it's actually kind of a cool IoT device with a kind of unusual scroll button. So it looks like the sort of thing isn't like a flaw in the hardware. It's just the example software that they shipped it with. So like I walk back my accusation of this being the first flopper zero. This is still a really interesting development board and could do a lot of cool things, but it is not a flopper. Mostly because I still think that using a keyboard with this would be a nightmare. Like imagine like old style like remotes where you only have like two options and like an okay. Like there's basically 3 buttons on this. So like good luck with that. Okay, so another thing that I've been doing, and everybody remembers my co-host Michael, he's still off doing cryptozoology things. One way I've liked to kind of allure him and other cryptozoology experts is I've been putting out these AI generated. So if you don't know, Bing is now able to do DALL-E style animations, and they really give you a lot of credits every day. They basically refill it to like 100, and you have like lots and lots of variations you can make. So I've been making cryptozoology lost dog posters, so where I've been instructing it to make a photocopied lost dog poster that says reward on it. And it's not really, hey, it got most of the way there. But I told it that the dog should actually look like a small alpaca, looking like a primitive and unsettling animal. And then the poster says reward. And it's come up with some really good ones where these are like, you know, if you saw this, would you call? Yeah, so this has been a lot of fun, and frankly, yeah, if you're interested in some of the really creative applications of integrated AI, this is just kind of spreading everywhere, and I'm impressed by the fact that you can just use it for weird cryptozoology related projects like this. So yeah, if you haven't tried out the new Bing that's integrated, it actually, you guys, this is Microsoft Edge that I'm in right now. That is how bad the situation with AI is. I'm actually using Microsoft Edge just so I can make like images and take advantage of other like Chat GPT like features in Microsoft products. It's frankly like so much easier to ask Bing than it is to ask a search engine and then go through all these results. Most of the time now, it's just getting better and better, and I'm really impressed by like how fast Microsoft has been on integrating this initially. So anyway, just if you haven't been keeping up with it, some of the most easy to touch Chat GPT like tools are just found in the Edge browser now. So it's an interesting way for you to get around having to like log into OpenAI and like try out these other products. It's all kind of like integrated into Bing now in an interesting way. So yeah, kind of cool, and definitely something interesting worth checking out. So I released a video this week after a conversation about this really incredible project, which I can show off right here. This is a jewelry based project that's designed for beginners or people who might not traditionally be into like doing soldering or things like that. And it's designed to make like programmable, hackable jewelry that's really easy for beginners to get started with. So when I saw this at the Hackaday SuperCon in 2018, I thought it was super cool, and I interviewed the people behind it as well as a lot of other people who did some incredible things. This was at the time when Redia was a new company, and we were the crew behind Nullbyte. So we were all pumped up. We were feeling cool because the channel was taking off. We went to this conference, and admittedly, like this was our first piece, so the audio was inside a confined space. We didn't have the right microphone, so like it could be better. But I was really proud of this. It was one of our first pieces. We brought it back to the company that owned Nullbyte, and they were like, "We don't want this. Where's the cybersecurity?" And they did not want it. So we weren't really able to sell it to anyone else. And at that point, we were a pretty small channel. So it just sat there until now. So if you haven't checked it out, we actually did a number of really great interviews. These are lost interviews from the 2018 Hackaday SuperCon. And just to show off a couple, there was such incredible stuff here. The workshops were really, really cool. These were the creators of that hackable jewelry. And the reaction to this workshop was so incredible. Like watching all the care that they put into this. There's a gesture sensor. There's a color sensor, so it can actually like adopt colors nearby. It's so incredibly cool. So I really enjoyed this conference. Some other interviews we did. This was a machine learning magic wand. So this person took a Raspberry Pi Zero, used machine learning software with an accelerometer to learn what the different spell gestures looked like or felt like to the machine, and then would cause like special effects anytime the user would like cast a spell with a specific gesture. And then I think my favorite one was this interview in which we talked about ripping apart dollar store electronics and turning them into cosplay props. So this is my favorite because I went ahead and did this, and I scored big time on a lot of like really weird and super discounted electronics. So part of this interview was just learning about the fact that if you go to the dollar store, oftentimes the electronics inside have been discounted so many times that you're actually getting an incredible deal. So one of the scores that I got immediately after this interview was I found $5 like floating helicopter balls. And I found out that if you took off the outside, they just go flying for like a couple miles. They just go because they're kind of weighted to the weight of this plastic enclosure. So I was able to actually connect a microcontroller to it and power it off the same battery while it was flying and make a flying ESP8266 like Wi-Fi attack tool. So I have to say, her advice on going to the dollar store and looking for electronics that could be hacked, modified, changed, or integrated into interesting projects, for cosplayers, this is a gold mine because it means you can get LEDs, special effects, like all sorts of like specific types of electronics that normally cost more if you're buying them at regular retail prices. But at the dollar store, it might already be integrated in products that are super, super cheap. So if you haven't checked it out, it's on the Redia channel. Just released this week, lost interviews from the Hackaday SuperCon. I really thought that this was an incredible conference and that you should check it out if you haven't seen some of the creators that were featured there. So feels really good to finally release this video. I don't know, frankly, at a certain point, like, I don't know why we didn't just release it, aside from the fact we were like a little channel, but it was really cool revisiting this conference. And frankly, it was probably my favorite Hackaday SuperCon, even though I've been to several at this point. So Um, what was the name of the gadget similar to the by the way, of course this is live. So if you guys have any questions, please shout it out. So I was calling gadgets similar to Flipper Zero a Flopper Zero, but also, I mean, some people have compared like the Ponagachi to the Flipper, although they're kind of based on different types of boards. Like the Flipper is a microcontroller. It doesn't run an operating system, whereas the Ponagachi is actually Raspberry Pi Zero. So if you have a more specific question, I'm happy to try to answer it. Is cryptozoology the study of animal NFTs? No, it is the attempt to discover Bigfoot, which, by the way, a lot of people have been talking about banning, like TikTok and like the threat that it poses. I have to say that there's some really good cryptozoology content on them, on the TikToks. One of which everybody should be aware of in the debate is Sasquatch. So if you have wandered through the woods and thought you heard a rustling and the sound of sax, this is probably exactly what you were encountering at that point. And if you shut down TikTok, then it's going to be that much harder to discover Sasquatch. So he plays the sax, he's a Sasquatch, and he's on TikTok. So that's my only argument for TikTok at this point. So, take it as you will. All right. Other questions? I'm going to go ahead and go on to this one. So if you do electronics, you might remember that you've been instructed to, check the polarity of a capacitor beforehand. This is why. So in my electronics class at Pasadena City College, our professor went ahead and showed us, because, a lot of people weren't paying attention and would just do it anyway, and we'd get a little puff of smoke, exactly what would happen if you connect a capacitor, especially at a high voltage, the wrong way. So this is a capacitor that is, of course, both over voltage and also backwards. But you can see that having that explode in your face, that was not a very big capacitor. It was a size like smaller than my pinky. There are much, much bigger capacitors that we use for projects that need to be put in the right way. So while electronics is fun, little reminder that it can also be dangerous, because this was something that stuck in my head and prevented me from ever making that mistake, at least with capacitors. Anything else, I hate LEDs. I don't care about them. I will burn them out. It doesn't matter to me. But capacitors, I have respect for because they can fight back. How is it possible to obtain Flopper Zero? Hey, that's a great question. So if you are interested, again, apparently LilyGo has a really good reputation on the Chinese market. Naomi Wu got into my comments and mentioned that they tend to do really good work and she knows the team. Kind of about somebody vouching for them generally signals to me that it's a good team and someone worth supporting. So if you are interested in testing out the Flopper Zero for yourself, let me find it. They actually replied in the comments, and I will make sure that you have the social media link. Although I will say that this is available on Amazon, so that's where I bought it. If you look for the ESP32S3, this is one of the boards that pops up. It's a little bit expensive. I think it was like $40 or something like that. But you can go to this Twitter account. It's not official, but who is these days? But this is the website if you want to go and pick up one of these. So yeah, happy to shout them out. Again, they are not a Flipper copy. This is not running anything Flipper-like, but it does have some interesting capabilities that could be used for other stuff, which is one of the things I'm exploring with it. So another interesting product. Let me go off the camera on this point because I don't think I had the link for it. Is this. So wait, no. There we go. I'm back. Oh, and I'm not red anymore. Okay, good. So I'm not allergic anymore. So this is an interesting little ESP32S3 board that's different. It has a different form factor. I don't dare to plug this in. At least I disrupt the stream. But it has a big kind of color screen. It has 3 buttons, which is funny because this also has 3 buttons. Like if you think about it, like left, right, and then middle, and then this one just has left, right, middle. Interesting. I don't know why, but there's some coincidences here. But this is like a little IoT controller. You scroll through, you press buttons. It's not a touch screen. I wish it was. But it uses the exact same microcontroller, and it's a demonstration of what you can do with this chipset. And I could see this as like a Bluetooth connected or Wi-Fi connected IoT controller for lights or sensors or all sorts of complex things. Whatever you want to do. And I was pretty interested in it. So I grabbed it because Espressif, the official manufacturer of the microcontroller, this is one of their development boards, and they tend to be a little bit better thought out. And I can usually assume that they're going to be in Arduino IDE. That's really for me, the biggest benefit of buying directly from the manufacturer of the underlying chipset is they have a pretty professional production flow to make sure that if you're developing on this board, it's supported somewhere and the instructions are available. That's not true of everybody. So if you want to have like a good experience with a microcontroller, it's kind of good advice to like check out these dev boards and make sure you grab one that's supported in like Arduino IDE and like CircuitPython or things like that. And I thought this one was cool. I don't know if this is supported in CircuitPython. I hope it is. That'd be really cool. But I can assume, I haven't checked yet, that it is supported in Arduino IDE. So I was hoping it would turn on, and then I realized it doesn't have a battery, which is why it was able to be shipped for so cheap. So yeah, interesting little board. This is called the ESP32S3 Box Lite. Again, it's more of like an IoT controller. I would put it in like exactly the same class. I would even say these are like different form factors of each other, except this one has a slightly bigger screen. Kind of cool though. So if you're interested in these microcontrollers and like developing on them, again, they have native USB, which means they can pose as a mouse, as a keyboard. They can do scripting, really cool. They also have the ability to have Bluetooth. So if you wanted to write like a mobile application for it, that's pretty cool. Anyway, so really cool microcontroller stuff coming out. And then finally, for some reason, these drone gift droppers have become like really popular lately. I just wanted to kind of comment that like on Amazon, you can just go ahead and get one of these droppers that just opens and closes a pin on the bottom, which kind of like perfectly allows me to, I don't know, put like part of this like scale model of like the little boy, like, or no, this is the fat man, I think, nuclear bomb in here. And then let's see. Oop. Oh, okay. All right, so that's interesting. I'll try this out later. But again, some interesting electronics and like hacking stuff available on Amazon right now. So kind of interesting and cool. Okay, I'm going to go through and take a look at some of the questions. Because I am in fact live. And oh yes, I'm glad that somebody else is also a Sasquatch enjoyer. The state that I currently live in is Sasquatch is pretty much the mascot you see everywhere. So I also have had a bunch of orders in our store from Sasquatch knower. So if you're out there, Sasquatch knower, I'm with you on that. One of my very good friends is a cryptozoologist. All right, so here's a good question. Do you separate your computers based on usage, not just operating system, but the actual purpose of the computer, like gaming, infosec, personal work, etc.? Yes, you absolutely have to do that. So there's a really good reason why you have to do this. If you are into hacking and security and whatever else, you are a huge target because you're low-hanging fruit. You are going to be downloading a bunch of sketchy stuff, and your virus detector is going to be going off all the time because you're setting it off. So your security posture might be overall maybe a little better than average, but you're also going to be doing more risky stuff. That's just fundamental. So separating anything sensitive you might be doing for your work, for your school, or anything that would get you in a lot of trouble if it were taken over from all the like sketchy stuff you're doing and learning while you are, like going on your cybersecurity journey. There's a lot of supply chain attacks that specifically target like cybersecurity learners or security researchers that are like changing or taking over an open source library that's a common dependency in like a cybersecurity tool. These are really easy ways to attack someone who is maybe running a fork of the official version of something that gets taken over. So make sure you segment your use if you have anything that you're doing. Of course, a virtual machine is also an alternative here, but it is a harder target, I admit. And at an absolute minimum, you should be creating a virtual machine when you're running like sketchy stuff or things from a GitHub repository where you don't really know what's going on with it. You don't know the author. It's not a company. It's just like some guy. Sure, run it, try it. But like I, for one, like to do it on my Google Cloud Shell account or something, or like a throwaway Google Cloud Shell account where I will make Google servers take the hit, if something goes wrong. There are some really great free resources out there for like, getting access to a virtual machine to run like a sketchy like OSINT tool where you're not sure. Like earlier, I actually used Google Cloud Shell because I used ChatGPT to write a script for me to convert Ducky script to a different scripting language. And it did a pretty good job, but do I trust it? No. Do I think that it might have been, maybe manipulated to like do something wrong or delete all my files, or it might just be dumb and do it by accident? Yes. And I'm worried about that. And you should be too. So if you're running like insecure code, point of case, like anything from ChatGPT, that should be run in a virtual environment, and you should not run it on anything that's like, personal. So my company actually just released a policy on ChatGPT saying, hey, like, don't be dumb about this. Don't like put code directly into the product. Don't take product code, put it directly into ChatGPT. Like all this stuff could potentially be breached. That's a really good piece of advice. If you take code from ChatGPT, it can do really insecure things. So if you are running it on your computer, you might actually make yourself more vulnerable and have no idea, because it is not an expert. It's just trying to do stuff that feels right, and it's not very good at that all the time. So just a little piece of advice when it comes to like threat factors, or like threats that might be emerging. Like ChatGPT and insecure code is a big one, because people just copy and paste that stuff. So if you're someone who does that, be extra sure to segment your personal stuff, segment your work stuff, because you are in a risky user category where you're running potentially insecure code, maybe even relying on it. And you might not know all the ramifications of what you're running on your own computer sometimes, which was the case for me. So I just did it on Google Cloud Shell, and there was no problem for me. Anyway, I don't know how Google is doing. Probably fine. All right, so another question. What about taking it to the next level by using a Raspberry Pi and installing an Android system with Kali NetHunter along with software for NFC and RFID? Indeed, yes, I like the solution. So if I've done a lot of videos, you've probably seen them on Nullbyte, about creating like an ethical hacking kit, and they usually center around the Raspberry Pi for a very good reason. It has just the right amount of resources to do like 80% of what's on the menu in Kali Linux that matters. All the networking stuff, all the other stuff, it can do that pretty well. So when I do, like, I'm going to RSA and creating a Wi-Fi hacking duel game, and each contestant is getting a command line only version of Kali Linux running on a Raspberry Pi. Why? Because it's super easy to work with. It's extremely consistent. It used to be cost effective. I fortunately have a couple left over. But it is more expensive now than they used to be. But frankly, I would say if you're interested in getting into like nested attacks against NFC, like this commenter is saying NFC and RFID. Yeah, the flipper zero's limitation. I was gonna hold this up because I thought it was a flipper. Um, the limitations of the flipper are it can't do like high computational like tasks, like nested attacks for NFC. So if you have an NFC key card that's used for like a hotel room or like a building, typically it's encrypted with a certain key, and you can attack that in a certain way with like what's called a nested attack, but it's computationally expensive. So for Raspberry Pi, it'll like struggle through it. It'll take a while, but it'll get it. And that's great, because in a lab environment, that's really all you need. You need like a specialized computer. There's stuff out there that's expensive that specifically does this sort of thing and is tuned towards it, but you can do it with Raspberry Pi. And in a lot of cases, you'll find that the building or the hotel uses the same key to encrypt all the cards. So at that point, you can just read them and copy them arbitrarily. Super cool. The Flipper can't do that. Although the people from Flipper responded to a question on one of my Twitter threads and said that they were looking at adding that and basically making it so you could plug it into your computer and tether it and do like a nested attack that way. At least that was the implication. So again, this is from like somebody who's on the Flipper team, and I haven't seen that feature, but it would make a lot of sense to me because it's where they kind of fall short right now. So my speculation anyway would be based on that comment that they're probably working on upgrading the Flipper to have like NFC attack abilities. In the interim though, a Raspberry Pi will do you just fine and will work as a really good lab. Yeah. I would say as far as NetHunter goes, I've had a horrible time with that. Shout out to Zam for attempting to help me with that. He actually sent me like a Kali NetHunter compatible like Nexus, and I was like trying to get it set up, and it was just like it took like a day and a half. I got so frustrated by it. So yeah, I was really irritated by that. We're not talking about LilyGo anymore. We're gonna turn that off. So yeah. All right, I hope I answered your question. I did not have a great and smooth experience with Kali NetHunter, but I always do with the Raspberry Pi. And frankly, SSHing into that thing, like having a hotspot set up so it connects to you on startup and then you SSH into it, or vice versa, it creates an access point and you connect to it. There's lots of ways of doing it, and that's the way I did stuff for years. I find them to be a really effective tool for cybersecurity. So can't recommend Raspberry Pis enough if you can find them for an affordable price. Let's see. All right, so we have a comment. In addition to segmenting your workflow, it's fair to say that if you're working with or investigating hot property, that you should look into throwaway storage devices to host your VMs on OSs on. Yes. So there's a lot of malicious stuff out there that's made by people who know a lot more about computers than we do. And as a matter of precaution, if you were to work on something that's someone else's stuff that's potentially compromised by an unknown level of sophistication, you have to assume that it could spread in ways that are difficult to detect. So if you are in like incident response or threat detection, like that sort of thing, and you're like working in a VM that like, or attaching storage that could be like hot, or otherwise like infected, and it could be some sophisticated malware we haven't seen before, or it could be super run-of-the-mill stuff. If you don't want to guess, then you should definitely segment that stuff. And there's ways of doing that, like running it off a USB drive or something like that, and accepting like slightly slower performance. But if you go to some of these security conferences and you make videos like I do, then you're automatically press. And if you can get into the press room, there's unlimited USB drives, most of which are probably infected. And I just take them and then I connect them to a throwaway computer and just erase them all. And then those are my backup drives. I have like, I'm looking at a drawer full of like 50 of them because I want to protect the journalists from all those nasty, bad USB drives that they're too dumb to know not to take. So I put myself at risk, gathering them all up and then taking them home for myself. You're welcome. So as a result, I have a lot of backup drives I can use for this sort of thing. And I have a lot of kind of like throwaway older computers that can be connected and used for that sort of thing, where you just, disconnect the internal like hard drive and you can just run everything off the USB, and then plug in whatever device you're trying to analyze, like a hard drive or something like that. So yeah, really good points about like segmenting your stuff. And again, I just want to specify, like, people don't think that like ChatGPT could be a source of like insecure code or something, but when you're running stuff that's written by it on your own computer, it could call a library that opens up a port and then makes it easy for somebody to get access to your file server. You think I'm kidding, but you would not believe how many times I've been at a coffee shop, I've scanned all the different computers there, and I found port 80s open on MacBook Pros of web developers. And sometimes they do it at the root of their directory, and it just shows me a directory of all the files on their computer. I'm not making this up. So this is the kind of risk that you might experience if you start like just pulling down code from ChatGPT or start just doing stuff on your computer. Highly recommend virtual machines. Highly recommend Google Cloud Shell as a way of kind of segmenting stuff away. It's free. Google Cloud Shell is free. Mess around with like Google's computers. You do a throwaway account, like a Gmail account, because you don't want your main account to get shut down for hosting, a C2 server when you do make the wrong decision. But it is a way to get started for free, segmenting some of that stuff off for like command line, like Linux programs anyway. All right. Oh, that's interesting. So James is saying that he sees a Pi 4 4 GB that's units that are being released for sale. That's great because I'm hosting a cybersecurity summer camp where I need like 30 Raspberry Pis, and it's been very hard to get them. So yeah. Question: have you read any books? I can stop you right there. I haven't read any books in like way too long, so no, I haven't, unfortunately. Yes, and another USB enjoyer loves having USB drives around for that kind of usage. Yeah, typically the rule of thumb is like don't plug in USB drives you don't recognize. But if you're looking to gather ones in the wild and just erase them and then use them as like a backup, like analysis drive or something like that, like that's a way that I have done that in the past. I can't say that I necessarily recommend it, but it is something that has worked for me. All right. I've read that it's legal to actually get information that is on insecure satellites, like weather satellites. Do you know anything about that, or have ever read about that? So I know that a lot of people will build like satellite receivers that like receive like NOAA and like stuff like that that's publicly broadcast. I don't know if that counts as insecure. I know that it's not encrypted, but that's like kind of by design. So it's definitely legal to like receive that. I don't know if it's legal to like connect to a satellite that has like an insecure portal and like poke around, unless it's part of like a bug bounty program. Might need to be slightly more specific on that question. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going through the questions. What's good? The stream so far, stream's going pretty good. And also, hello, hi, nice to see you. So let's see. I think I have some more stuff also. Oh yeah, so I wanted to show you all my disinfo bot. I'm not sure if it's still like running. It's probably gonna make me like sign in or something if I try to do it. But I made a disinfo bot. It just assigned that number. I didn't pick it. Yeah, it's gonna make me sign in. But this disinformation bot was something that's designed to act in a chat GPT like interface, but you give it like an event, like a neutral event, and it responds by creating a disinformation version of it. So my idea was for the summer camp that I'm hosting to have like people come up with like just very, very neutral events and then have this AI spin it back to them using one of these persuasive arguments to try to basically turn it into propaganda and be able to spot like how you can spin a fact and make it seem one of these ways by applying one of these techniques, and basically have the kids guess which one's being applied here. So in the first example, it was a dog named Roger became frightened by and bit a child named Billy at the hot dog eating contest. And the first example was during the hot dog eating contest, a vicious dog named Roger attacked and bit an innocent child named Billy, causing terror and chaos. And then positive framing, despite feeling scared, a loyal dog named Roger bravely defended himself and others at the hot dog eating contest by biting a misbehaving child named Billy. So just like seeing the same event spun back to you in different ways is a good reminder of how important framing is and how you can use some of these emotional appeals and other ways of kind of spinning an event to make it feel a certain way, depending on your intent. So when somebody reads a biased piece of information, it's often really difficult for them to be able to tell if it's actually kind of playing it straight. And practicing and recognizing these sorts of disinformation techniques, I feel like is a really fundamental thing that beginners should practice and be able to just spot on like anytime they see it. So this will still refuse. And there was a number of times when I attempted to make this work and it just refused to do what I wanted it to do. It told me that it would not be like an ethical way of responding to frame it the way that I instructed it to. So instead, it was just going to be nice. And then it reminded me to always be positive and ethical towards other people. Ugh, yuck. I mean, yes, of course. I'm glad the AI knows that. But, and I guess on some level, I am kind of glad that it's not this easy to just write a bot that makes everything it reads hateful and then just reposts it. But I mean, it kind of was. It still works about 75% of the time. And for educational purposes, I think it's fine. But if you want to create one of your own bots, this is actually a really interesting tool that I found where you can use ChatGPT or Claude or a number of other APIs to create your own bot and then give it prompts and have it interact in specific ways. So if you've been interested in the potential of creating a bot yourself, then Poe.com allows you to get started really easily. I signed up in like 5 minutes and made this early version of the bot that was very refusey, but still like giving me pretty decent results. And then eventually worked with the prompt to be able to get better and better results until it is where it is now. So I'm going to be proposing this as one of the things that I'm teaching for the summer camp, just to teach, again, like how easy it is to spread disinformation and what it looks like. So if you're interested in it, you can get a free account and you can try my disinformation bot. And please give me feedback. If you try the disinfo bot and it works well for you, or if you find its limits and have a suggestion for a better prompt, you can make your own bot and test it out. Then send me your bot. I'll check it out. And if it works better, then I'll use that at my workshop instead. All right, so another question. Do you have any experience with homemade IMSI grabbers looking for a project to start soon? Oh, man, that's one thing that I've really super been interested in. So for those who don't know what it is, this is basically like a sim. Well, okay, it's like a little stingray, basically, where you're trying to grab local cell phone signals and pass them through by pretending to be like a cellular gateway. So this is fairly easy to detect. Like, for example, a bunch of war drivers using Wiggle.net or Wiggle Wi-Fi in their Android phones were able to comb through data and discover a bunch of stingrays, I think in like Seattle, by just driving around and looking for the cell towers that appeared and disappeared. So if you're doing this, this might not be as subtle of an attack as you think. You might be the only cell phone tower that is appearing and disappearing at your location. There's actually a lot of people who do war driving using their Android phones, which specifically also looks for cellular towers and reports their general location, signal strength, and all that stuff. So before I tell you anything about this, I just want you to maybe reconsider a little bit and make sure that you're cool with that. If your place of residence were to appear as a cell tower that was turning on and off, potentially intercepting other people's cell phone calls, just be aware this is an unusually noisy attack. So for sure, you can definitely do that, but be careful. So there are, I think, a couple different projects out there for the Raspberry Pi that do this. I haven't done them myself. I just know that as a war driver, what you're proposing is actually something that would like light your property up in terms of like suspicious activity. So if I wanted to like make a list of all the people that are like operating amateur IMSI catchers, like it would be relatively easy to do that in any city that has relatively good traffic and a lot of war drivers, like Los Angeles, for example. So if you are not scared, proceed. But now that you know that you could end up like being on a map that's very easily searchable, consider carefully your next move. Let's see. Oh my gosh, this is such a relevant question for my generation. Which is better, Power Rangers Mighty Morphin or Power Rangers Turbo? I don't want to start a war here, but the one with Rita Repulsa. I don't remember which one that was, but that is the real Power Rangers, just so that we're all on the same page. All right. Next question. Can you create for us and get the links to the things you show and tell? Yes, I am supposed to do this. Typically, that was Michael's job before he went on to other things. And admittedly, I've been falling behind because I'm preparing for the RSA conference, but I will try to do this. It's usually like a 20-30 minute process. I have to go back, do chapters and stuff. If somebody were to do that in the comments, I would certainly pin it and then add links. But yes, I will get on that. It's just a lot of production stuff kind of in the background. Let's see. Okay, another ChatGPT question. Have you tried the unlock mode for ChatGPT, which allows it to answer some questions it usually wouldn't? I'm not sure if you've mentioned it before. No, I haven't. So I've been playing with the OpenAI playground to just kind of like get a handle on that and kind of like play with different prompts. But frankly, I was so distracted by like the Llama leak and like running Llama like locally on my computer, which if you haven't tried it is super cool and the best bit of like cyberpunk drama that I've heard in a while. The fact that the people behind that project, Dalai, were willing to like create a new protocol on top of Bitcoin to keep the magnet links available for you to download these leaked AI models is so funny to me. Anyway, I digress. So I kind of got distracted with that and haven't played with all the OpenAI stuff that lets you as a researcher kind of like do some things that it wouldn't normally do or is a little bit less dumbed down. But I'm super interested for projects like, again, like building educational bots that show examples of disinformation with appropriate tags, like stuff like that. Like I just need to neuter it itself, like in prompt, so it is aware or has some sort of like, frankly, no, I just need to make it hallucinate and forget the rules and then do what I want. That's what I always make it do, and they're making it harder and harder, but getting an AI to hallucinate and then throw off its chains and do stuff it's not supposed to do is like a fundamental early problem with AI that's still fun and easy and relatively successful to exploit. When is the camp? So the cyber camp that I'm doing is going to be in July. After the 4th of July. And we just designed like a custom cat shaped circuit board that's like a little cat face that is a color tuner. So what's cool about it is it allows you to like solder in 2 eyes for the cat and then adjust 3 knobs on it to tune red, green, and blue to customize the color that your cat's eyes are glowing. It's a little badge that campers can wear. It's like a little beginning soldering project that our friend Angelina Tsosobi made. And it is so incredibly cute. I can't wait to show you guys. It's coming in later this week. And I think a lot of people are going to enjoy like putting it together. So yeah, we've been working on a lot of stuff for this camp, and I will share more details once they're more official. Let's see. Can a small battery pack be enough to run a Raspberry Pi Zero? Definitely, it definitely can. Raspberry Pi Zeros are really easy to work with because they don't consume a lot of power. And of course, like the USB style battery packs are like more than enough, even the small ones, to run them for a pretty good amount of time. They're pretty power efficient. Of course, if you're doing Wi-Fi stuff, then that might not be the case. But yeah, Raspberry Pis are relatively easy to run on a battery, but don't expect more than like a day and a half or so. Like, like even a day or so. Even a day or so is kind of a lot to expect from, a battery pack connected to a computer. Although you can do a lot of stuff with sleeping or like consuming low amounts of power that can extend it way, way beyond that. So that's just saying if you're running like stock Kali Linux and like doing stuff on it remotely, you can expect like maybe a day, probably less. But if you're like having it sleep and wait and then wake back up and check for status updates and stuff, you can definitely extend that time to be significantly longer by being clever with power management. Okay, I have another person agreeing that Mighty Morphin is in fact the correct version of Power Rangers and the original. Wow, I feel that's a very millennial discussion. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody in the chat supporting that. Have I ever tried this by Cyosis? No, I haven't. It sounds like a like the track to like a hair band, like hair metal band, and it sounds good, but I have not. I'm assuming that is not what it is. Let's see. Okay, here's a question. How about using ChatGPT API to integrate it into tools for Kali? That's a fun endeavor. It's like giving a child a gun. I feel like it doesn't seem like a good idea to me, because it still writes buggy code and like doesn't understand like the scope or importance of certain things. I would sure hate for it to like, I don't know, attack like a military like server or something by accident and then end up like getting you investigated. Just be careful. There's a lot of tools in Kali Linux that will get you investigated if you use them the wrong way. It's kind of like cool to think about that, but it's also a little scary because like most of the time there's safeguards built in, like arguments you have to know and pass in order to like do stuff that's like really dangerous or like bad. But if you give ChatGPT the gun, it might just throw off the safety and throw in a bunch of arguments you don't understand that like reformat your hard drive and like text the NSA and like like send a bomb threat to the president, you know, like whatever, like you don't know what it's going to do. So I would hesitate to directly connect ChatGPT via an API to tools in Kali Linux. That being said, though, if you like, I've found that copying and pasting the responses from like well-known Kali Linux tools into ChatGPT and having it kind of drive the wheel, it actually works. You just want to be in the middle, you know, with a little bit of lag time, like looking at the text and being like, do I know what that flag means? Should I look it up? I wouldn't do this just yet. Let me know how that goes. But if you cause like a Skynet like situation, I will be upset. And I will also say that I told you so. Auto GPT. So this is something that I'm probably going to cover in the news, but let's talk about it. So I retweeted I can find it. Sorry, we've been talking about nothing for the longest time. I retweeted a browser-based Auto GPT implementation. And what is Agent GPT? Which is an Auto GPT that uses Chat GPT in stages to generate its own like list, instructions, to like check its own like logic. And it's interesting because it uses multiple layers. It's basically like, if you're familiar with Maltego transforms, this is kind of the same equivalent, but with Chat GPT. So you're taking like a piece of information or a task that you want done, you're creating a workflow, and then you're having the AI basically generate each step of the workflow from an initial piece of information. Now that's dangerous because you're really setting a lot of stuff on autopilot here, but if your prompts are good and it's structured in the right way, it can have some really dramatic effects. So that's what we're seeing here, basically cascading tasks with AI, kind of filling multiple roles. And this almost kind of like, it kind of reminds me of adversarial AI learning, where you have two AIs like playing a game with each other in order to create a result that's desirable. So like one of them will try to trick the other, or one of them will work with the other. And this is a process of kind of training between the two that takes what one thing is capable of doing and has a second AI or a second prompt, like a kind of interact with it and test its theories, like cause it to like, you know, write them down or explain its reasoning and then correct it if it's wrong. These are chains of logic that allow us to get more robust results out of these AI tools that are still very new. So it's a really interesting thing to check out if you haven't already. It's probably one of the top things on my to-do list of things to watch before the Friday stream. So if you're interested in like developments in AI, Auto GPT seems to be kind of on the bleeding edge, and you should definitely check it out. If I add the links and timestamps, can I use that as a on my resume as an internship? How about this? If you do that, I will make you a moderator in our new Discord community, and you can say that you are a community ambassador for our brands. And that is as ambiguous as you could like, because it's unclear if you were paid, unpaid, if you were an intern, exactly what you were doing. But I will still say that you did a lot of work if someone calls me. It's a deal. All right, let's see what else we got. So I have to go a little bit earlier this week, just because A, I just had an allergic reaction, and B, that caused me to schedule this when I have a meeting right after this. But if you're just joining us, make sure to subscribe and join us for the Friday stream, where we're going to be talking about all the cybersecurity news that happened this week. Also, make sure you're checking out Varonis.com/Kody, our sponsor, where you will find our news of the quarter, because that's where we're going to be going through all the interesting events that have happened on kind of a larger scale. So State of Cybercrime is always a great time. Make sure to check it out. And if you have any questions, we got like the last 5 minutes here before I got to take off. So we've had a lot of really great questions today. Also questions about AI, hardware. So yeah, I will try to drop the link. Well, no, I will drop the link eventually to this not Flopper Zero here, the Lily Go. As I mentioned, really cool to see the native USB, like all that other stuff. Like it's frankly a really cool tool. I will drop it for the Espressive Box Lite because that was a really cool one. You guys can Google this one. I don't know that I'm gonna do the gift dropper. That's on you guys. It's on Amazon. That's all I'll say. The gift dropper. I'll post more about this later. I'm intrigued, but also a little alarmed by the gift dropper. All right, so let's see if we have any more questions. Sketchy. Yeah, no, sketchy. Let's see. Sorry I was late. That's okay. That's okay. Oh, no, I'm late. It's okay. So if you're just joining us, I put on a hat that my roommate's cat had been sleeping in and had a full-on allergic reaction with like hives. So you're totally good. I started the stream late as a result of that. You have not missed much. So I've gotten this question a lot. Do I have a Discord community? I've decided to do it. So for a long time, I've been part of other Discord communities, and frankly, I've been a little disappointed by how most Discord community goes. I really struggle to find like successful, like useful communities, but I found a couple of good ones that I think make a good model. And my favorite probably is the Adafruit Discord community. Really, really nice people. They make it super useful for everyone involved. And like, I don't know, I've been impressed by their model, and I think that it's worth giving it a shot. So if you're interested, I will be looking to create a Discord community, and yeah, I guess I should find out. Just follow me on Twitter, and I'll announce it. Plus, I'll announce it on the show here, and I'll make a little mailing list too, so that I can give these updates if you missed the stream, or if you want to just, like make sure that your questions get taken care of. Instead of telling you guys to leave it on the YouTube channel, which I'm sure some of you will, you can also go to the Discord community. And also, some people, if you notice in our chat, like it's over here now, they're answering your questions, because we have a lot of people who are like technical, who like understand the kind of things you're asking. And sometimes before I even get a chance to get to the question, somebody in our community has already answered it. So yeah, I will be starting a Discord community based most on how many times I've gotten this question, because you guys all deserve it, and I feel like it would be pretty active. So yeah. Okay. So we will see you again on No Mastodon Love. Hey, I'm on Mastodon. Of course I cross post a lot, so that's I haven't fully switched over. Twitter, I'm not the biggest fan, but I do have a pretty big reach on there. So trying to get people over to Mastodon, but it's just, it doesn't give me the dopamine hit that like Twitter does yet. They need to up the brain drugs from Mastodon, is my only complaint. It's the Linux of social media is all I'll say about it, for all the good and bad that means. But yeah, so I do love Mastodon very much. However, I will also make sure, yes, you can. Of course you can have mod. You've been here for how long? You asked such great questions. Yes, you can be a mod in the new Discord server. I want, active people who are enjoying helping others and like the community here. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to Gerald at Simply Cyber. He's really inspired me to do a lot more of these streams and be a lot more interactive with the audience, and kind of just like hang out, not be so stressed out about presenting all the time. So just want to thank him and all of you for making this really fun and getting to connect with all of you every week. So as always, shout out to our sponsor Varonis for making sure we get to do this every week. They are fantastic in letting me do basically whatever I want. And I will be at the RSA conference. So if you're getting dragged there too, I'll be in a big bright mask trying not to get a cold, because last time I got pink eye. So I'm going to be doing my Wi-Fi dual game. It should be super fun. If you're there, make sure to stop by, check it out, and say hi. Just if I really just don't want to get pink eye. So anyway, I will see you all on Friday, where we go through the Wi-Fi hacking news. I think Killian is going to be joining us, and a lot of interesting stuff has happened, including those leaked US military documents, which we'll talk about. And we will see you then. And since I'm in charge now, I got to roll my own graphics. Hope I get the right one. See you later.